The night sky above the carrier was a canvas of deep indigo, streaked with the faint glow of distant stars and the pulsing red of warning lights. On deck, the air was electric, a symphony of jet engines, shouted orders, and the metallic clang of boots on steel. In the ready room, Lieutenant Alex Frost Martin sat alone, helmet in her lap, hands trembling ever so slightly. She was the youngest pilot in the squadron, barely 24, and the only woman. Her flight suit still looked new, her name, Patch Crisp, but it was the call sign Frost that drew the most attention. Some said it was because she kept her cool under pressure. Others, with a smirk, whispered it was because she froze. Alex tried not to listen, but the words clung to her, cold and heavy. Maverick, now a silver-haired legend and the squadron's mentor, watched her from the doorway. He'd seen hundreds of rookies come and go, but there was something about Alex's eyes, a flicker of determination behind the nerves. He leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed, and murmured, "You'll want to see what happens at 1912. Trust me." The mission briefing was a blur. Hostile contacts reported at the edge of the carrier group's patrol zone. The squadron would launch in pairs, sweep the area, and engage if necessary. Alex's heart hammered in her chest as the flight leader, Commander Reno Hayes, called her name. She was paired with Lieutenant Vapor Kim, a veteran who barely masked his skepticism. "Stay on my wing, Frost," Vapor said, voice flat. "Don't try to be a hero." Alex nodded, strapping on her helmet and following the others to the deck. The night air hit her like a wall hot, humid and thick with the scent of jet fuel. She climbed into her FAA, running through the pref light. Checks by rote, fingers moving on muscle memory. Her broken fingernail from last week's training still throbbed, a reminder that every detail mattered. The launch was a blur of noise and light. The catapult hurled her into the darkness, and for a moment, she was weightless alone with her thoughts, the roar of the engine, and the endless sky. The radio crackled. "Frost, check in." She swallowed, forcing her voice steady. "Frost Green." "Stay tight," Vapor ordered. "We've got bogeys at 2 o'clock, 20 miles. Alex's train took over. She scanned her radar, eyes flicking between the green blips and the horizon. The cockpit was a cocoon of light and sound, every instrument demanding her attention. Her breathing slowed, her world narrowing to the task at hand. The first contact came fast, a pair of enemy fighters closing in. Vapor barked orders, peeling off to intercept. Alex followed, heart pounding. The sky erupted in chaos tracers, missile warnings. The shriek of afterburners died, then it happened. A missile lock warning screamed in her headset. Alex's hands froze on the stick. Time seemed to slow. She heard Vapor's voice. "Rake left." "Frost, rake left." But her body wouldn't move. The enemy jet streaked past, guns blazing. A flash of light, a burst of static, and then silence. She snapped back to herself, jerking the stick hard, but it was too late. Vapor's jet took a hit, spiraling out of formation. Alex's own jet shuddered, alarms blaring. She fumbled with the controls, her mind a whirl of panic and shame. "Frost, status." Rhino's voice cut through the chaos. She stammered, I'm okay. Vapor's hit. I lost visual. Regroup. Now." Alex struggled to steady her breathing, her hands shaking. She scanned the sky, searching for Vapor, but all she saw was darkness and the distant glow of burning fuel. The rest of the squadron closed in, driving off the enemy, but the damage was done. Back on deck, the silence was deafening. The ground crew avoided her gaze. The other pilots whispered, their words sharp as knives. She froze up there. Almost. Got Vapor killed. She's not ready. Shouldn't even be flying. Alex kept her helmet on, hiding the tears that threatened to spill. She replayed the dogfight over and over, searching for what she could have done differently. The shame was a physical thing. pressing down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. In the debrief, Rhino's voice was cold. "You hesitated, Frost. In combat, hesitation kills." She nodded, unable to meet his eyes. Maverick found her later, sitting alone on the wing of her jet, staring at the ocean. He sat beside her in silence, letting the night air settle between them. "You know," he said quietly, "I froze in my first real fight, too." Alex looked up, surprised. "You?" He nodded. "Everyone's afraid the first time. The trick is what you do after. You get back in the cockpit. You learn. You fight." She wiped her eyes, the shame slowly giving way to something else, a stubborn spark, a refusal to quit. Maverick smiled, clapping her gently on the shoulder. "You'll want to see what happens at 1912. Trust me." As the carrier rocked gently beneath her, Alex made a silent promise. She would not let this be the end of her story. She would earn her place, not just in the squadron, but in the sky. But what no one knew, not the pilots, not the commanders, not even Maverick, was that the night's failure would become the crucible that forged her into the ace who would one day save them all. Asterisk. The days after the failed mission moved in slow motion, each hour heavy with the weight of what had happened in the sky. Alex Frost Martins tried to keep her head down, but on an aircraft carrier, there was nowhere to hide. Every corridor, every mess hall, every glance from a fellow aviator seemed to echo the same silent judgment. She froze. She failed. The squadron's ready room, once a place of camaraderie and laughter, now felt cold. The other pilots kept their distance. Some avoided her entirely, while others offered forced, awkward nods. The worst were the whispers just loud enough for her to catch, always when they thought she wasn't listening. "She's not cut out for this. Almost got vapor killed. She's a liability." Alex tried to drown out the noise with routine. She threw herself into every post-flight check, every maintenance report, every simulation. But the shame clung to her, a shadow she couldn't shake. Even the ground crew, who had always treated her with respect, now eyed her with uncertainty. At night, sleep was a stranger. She replayed the dogfight in her mind, searching for the moment it all went wrong. The missile lock warning, Vapor's voice in her headset, the way her hands had frozen on the stick, the moment she'd let fear win. She remembered her childhood, her father's stories of flying, the model planes they built together, the way he'd always told her she could be anything. She remembered her first solo flight, the thrill of breaking through the clouds, the certainty that she belonged in the sky. Now, that certainty felt like a distant memory. Flashbacks haunted her. The pressure of the academy, the relentless drive to prove herself, the subtle but constant reminders that she was different, the only woman in a squadron of men, the one with something extra to prove. She'd always met every challenge head-on, but this was different. The official debrief was brutal. Commander Rhino didn't mince words. "You hesitated, Frost. In this job, hesitation kills. You need to decide if you're ready for this, because the next time, we might not get so lucky." She nodded, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the floor. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to explain that it wasn't just fear, it was the weight of every expectation, every doubt, every whispered, "She can't do it." But the words stuck in her throat. After the debrief, Maverick found her in the hangar, staring at her jet. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside her, hands in his pockets, eyes on the horizon. "Rough day." He finally said. She nodded, unable to trust her voice. He leaned in, voice low. "You know, Frost, I've seen a lot of pilots wash out after a night like that. But I've also seen some come back stronger than ever. The difference isn't talent. It's what you do with the fear." She looked at him, searching his face for judgment, but found only understanding. "I froze," she whispered. "I let everyone down." Maverick shook his head. You had a bad night. That's all. What matters is what you do next. The next morning, Alex was the first in the simulator. She ran through the dogfight over and over, forcing herself to relive every second, every mistake. She practiced emergency maneuvers until her hands ached, drilled missile evasion until the motions became instinct. She sought out Vapor, her wingman from the mission. He was nursing a bruised ego and a banged-up jet, but he listened as she apologized. "I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling. "I froze. It won't happen again." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Just don't let it. We all mess up. The trick is not making the same mistake twice." The squadron's veterans were less forgiving. In the ready room, they spoke in low voices, casting sidelong glances her way. "She's not ready. She's a risk. She should be grounded." But Maverick, ever the mentor, pulled her aside after every flight, offering quiet advice, sharing stories of his own failures and how he'd overcome them. "Fear doesn't make you weak, Frost," he told her one night as they watched the sunset from the flight deck. "It makes you human. What you do with it, that's what makes you a pilot." Alex clung to those words. She doubled down on her training, spending every spare moment in the simulator, running drills, studying tactics. She watched footage of the best aces, memorizing their moves, analyzing every decision dot. As the days passed, she began to see small changes. Her hands stopped shaking. Her voice steadied on the radio. She started to trust herself again, bit by bit. But the doubt lingered. The memory of that night, the shame of freezing, was a scar she carried with her into every flight. The squadron faced new challenges, tougher missions, more aggressive enemy pilots. Alex flew support, always paired with a veteran, always under watchful eyes. She made no mistakes, but she took no risks. She was competent, but not yet confident. One evening, after a particularly grueling training sortie, Maverick found her in the gym, pounding away at the heavy bag. "Tough day?" he asked. She nodded, sweat dripping down her face. "I can't shake it. The fear, the doubt. What if it happens again?" He smiled, a little sadly. "It might. That's the truth. But you'll be ready next time, because you're facing it, not running from it." He handed her a towel, his voice gentle. "You know what makes an ace, Frost? It's not just skill. It's the willingness to fly into the storm, even when you're scared. Especially when you're scared." She looked at him, the spark of determination returning to her eyes. "I want to be that pilot," he nodded. "Then keep showing up. Every day, every flight, you'll get there." Alex took those words to heart. She kept showing up first in, last out, never backing down. She knew the road back would be long, but she was determined to walk it, one step at a time. But what no one knew, not the veterans, not the commanders, not even Maverick, was that the next storm was already gathering on the horizon. And when it hit, Alex would be the one the squadron turned to not because she was fearless, but because she had learned to fly with her fear. The days blurred into one another, a relentless cycle of drills, sorties, and debriefs. For Alex, every sunrise brought a new chance to prove herself, and every sunset was a reminder of how far she still had to go. The shame of that first dogfight clung to her, but so did the lessons. She was determined not to let fear define her, even if it meant working twice as hard as anyone else. She started her mornings before dawn, running laps around the carrier's deck, the salty wind biting at her cheeks. The physical exertion cleared. Her mind burned away the doubts that crept in during the night. After her run, she'd head straight to the simulator bay, sometimes beating the techs who opened it. She'd slip on the helmet, close the canopy, and immerse herself in scenario after scenario. Missile locks, surprise attacks, engine failures. Each time she froze, she forced herself to restart, to try again, until the hesitation faded and her reactions became instinctive. The squadron noticed. At first, the veterans rolled their eyes, muttering about overcompensation and rookie nerves. But as the weeks passed, even they couldn't ignore her progress. Her radio calls grew crisp and confident. Her landings were textbook. In training dogfights, she started to hold her own, even scoring a simulated kill on Rhino, the squadron leader, in a surprise maneuver that left the ready room buzzing. Still, the memory of that first night haunted her. In quiet moments, she would replay the dogfight in her mind, dissecting every second, every missed cue. She wrote down her mistakes in a battered notebook, then countered each one with a lesson learned, a new tactic, a promise to herself. Maverick watched her transformation with quiet pride. He'd seen pilots crumble under the weight of failure, but Alex channeled her pain into progress. He began to mentor her more directly, inviting her to join him for late-night briefings, sharing stories of his own setbacks, the time he'd lost a wingman, the missions that had gone sideways, the nights when he doubted if he belonged in the sky. "Every ace has scars, Frost," he told her one evening, as they stood on the flight deck watching the stars. "What matters is what you do with them." She nodded, the words settling deep in her bones. The squadron's missions grew more dangerous, as enemy pilots became bolder, probing the carrier group's defenses with increasing frequency. Alex found herself flying more often, sometimes as wingman, sometimes as lead on routine patrols. Each time, she felt the old fear stirring, but she met it head-on, breathing through the panic, focusing on the task. One night, during a particularly tense patrol, her section was bounced by a pair of enemy fighters. The warning tone blared in her headset, and for a split second, the old paralysis threatened to return. But she remembered Maverick's words, forced herself to move, and executed a perfect defensive break. Her wingman, Lieutenant Shark Evans, took out one bogey, and Alex maneuvered behind the second, locking on and scoring her first real-world kill. The adrenaline rush was overwhelming. When they returned to the carrier, Shark slapped her on the back, grinning. "Nice flying, Frost. You saved my skin out there." The ready room was different that night. The veterans nodded in approval. Rhino even cracked a rare smile. "Good work, Frost. Keep it up." But Alex knew one victory wasn't enough. She kept pushing, kept training, kept learning. She spent hours in the simulator, refining her tactics, studying enemy maneuvers, memorizing every detail of the carrier's airspace. Her confidence grew, but so did the challenges. The enemy began using more advanced tactics, decoys, electronic jamming, coordinated attacks. The squadron lost another jet, and the mood on the carrier turned grim. The pressure mounted, and Alex felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. One afternoon, Maverick called her into his office. He handed her a thick folder classified intelligence on enemy pilots, their tactics, their weaknesses. "You've got a knack for this, Frost," he said. "I want you to study these. We need someone who can think like the enemy." Alex spent every spare moment poring over the files, mapping out patterns, anticipating moves. She began to brief the squadron before missions, sharing her insights. The others listened, sometimes skeptically, but her predictions proved accurate time and again. The next big test came during a night sortie. The squadron was tasked with intercepting a formation of enemy bombers, escorted by ace fighters. The mission was high stakes. If the bombers got through, the carrier would be at risk. As they launched into the night, Alex felt the old fear stirring, but she steadied herself. The radio chatter was tense as the squadron closed in on the enemy formation. The dogfight erupted in a blur of tracers and missile locks. Alex's training took over. She called out enemy positions, coordinated her section, and executed a daring maneuver that drew two enemy fighters away from the bombers. Her women took out one, and Alex scored her second kill, saving the squadron from a flanking attack. When they returned, the debrief was different. Rhino singled her out. That was textbook flying, Frost. You kept your head and saved the mission. The squadron's attitude shifted. The whispers of doubt faded, replaced by respect. The veterans began to seek her out for advice. Even the ground crew started calling her ace with a grin. But Alex knew the real test was still to come. The enemy was adapting, growing more aggressive. The squadron would soon face its greatest challenge, a coordinated attack that would push every pilot to the limit. Late one night, Maverick found her on the flight deck, gazing at the stars. "You've come a long way, Frost," he said. "But the next fight will be the hardest. Are you ready?" She met his gaze, the spark of determination burning bright. "I'm ready, sir. Whatever comes, I'll be there." He smiled, clapping her on the shoulder. That's what makes an ace. As dawn broke over the carrier, Alex felt a sense of peace. She had faced her fear, learned from her failure, and earned her place in the squadron. The road to redemption had been long and hard, but she was ready for whatever the sky would throw at her next. But what no one knew, not the squadron, not the commanders, not even Maverick, was that the coming battle would test Alex in ways she had never imagined. And when the moment came, she would have to rise higher than ever before, not just for herself, but for everyone who counted on her. The night sky was a tempest of chaos and light, the carrier's deck a distant glow beneath the swirling storm clouds. Inside the cockpit, Lieutenant Alex Frost Martins gripped the controls with a steady hand, her eyes sharp despite the fatigue that tugged at her muscles. The squadron was under attack, ambushed by enemy fighters in a deadly game of cat and mouse. The squadron leader had been taken down early in the fight, his jet spiraling out of control into the dark sea below. Communications were fractured, and the remaining pilots looked to each other for guidance. It was in this moment of crisis that Alex felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. Her heart pounded, but she pushed the fear aside. This was the moment she had trained for, the moment that would define her. She took a deep breath, her voice steady as she keyed the radio. "All units, this is Frost. Regroup on my position. We're going to take them down together." The pilots responded, their voices a mix of relief and determination. Alex led the formation, weaving through the sky with precision and grace. She called out enemy positions, coordinated attacks, and executed maneuvers that left even the veterans impressed. One by one, she engaged the enemy fighters. Her reflexes were sharp, her aim true. She downed the first enemy jet with a burst of cannon fire, the explosion lighting up the night. The second fell to a missile, and the third was outmaneuvered in a daring dogfight that tested every ounce of her skill. The squadron rallied behind her, their confidence restored. With Alex at the helm, they pushed the enemy back, turning what seemed like a certain defeat into a hard-won victory. Back on the carrier, the crew watched the battle unfold on the radar, their cheers echoing through the hangar as the last enemy fighter was sent crashing into the sea. Alex landed her jet with hands steady and heart full. The squadron gathered around her, their respect evident in their eyes. The veterans who had doubted her now saw her as the ace who had saved them all. Maverick's voice narrated the moment. In the darkest hour, when all seemed lost, it was the pilot who once froze that became the squadron's greatest hope. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the will to act despite it. The base commander approached, saluting with pride. "Lieutenant Martins, you've earned your wings as a true ace today." Alex smiled, exhaustion and triumph mingling in her gaze. She had faced her fears, overcome her doubts, and soared higher than ever before. But what they didn't know was that this victory was just the beginning of a legacy that would inspire generations to come. Asterisk. The carrier's deck was awash in golden morning light as the squadron returned, their jets streaked with battle scars but intact. The adrenaline of the night's battle still lingered in Alex's veins, but now it was mingled with something deeper, a sense of belonging, of purpose, of triumph over everything that had once held her back. As she climbed down from her jet, the ground crew erupted in cheers. Pilots who had once doubted her now rushed to greet her, their faces alight with gratitude and awe. Even the veterans, those hard-edged flyers who had whispered behind her back, now looked at her with respect. Lieutenant Shark Evans grinned, clapping her on the shoulder. "You saved our skins, Frost. You're the real deal." Commander Rhino approached, his usual stern expression softened. "Lieutenant Martins, you did more than lead, you inspired. You showed this squadron what courage really means." Alex nodded, humbled. "Thank you, sir. I just did what needed to be done." He smiled. "That's what makes a leader. That's what makes an ace." The debrief was different this time. Instead of criticism, there was praise, detailed, genuine, and public. Maverick, standing at the back of the room, caught her eye and gave a subtle nod of pride. Afterward, he found her by the rail, watching the sunrise paint the ocean in shimmering gold. "You know, Frost," he said quietly, "the best aces aren't the ones who never feel fear. They're the ones who learn to fly with it." You turned your worst moment into your greatest strength. Alex smiled, the last of her self-doubt melting away. "I think I finally understand what you meant, sir." He chuckled. "Good, because there will always be another storm, another fight. But now, you know you can face it, and so does everyone else." Word of her actions spread quickly. In the days that followed, junior pilots sought her out for advice. The ground crew started calling her Ace with pride. The squadron's camaraderie was stronger than ever, forged in the crucible of battle and the example of a pilot who refused to let fear define her. Alex's journey became a legend on the carrier, a story told to every new recruit. The woman who froze in her first dogfight but became the ace who saved the squadron. Her legacy was not just in her kills or her commands, but in her resilience, her honesty about fear, and her refusal to quit. Sometimes, the hero isn't the one who starts out fearless. It's the one who faces fear, learns from it, and leads others through the storm. True courage is not the absence of doubt, but the decision to act anyway. If you want to hear more stories of real-life grit, redemption, and unexpected heroism, join the squad. Click subscribe and never miss the next chapter, because the next ace could be anyone, anywhere, flying higher than their fear.